It's I'm not sure what episode this is. I think this is episode 39, because we're going to miss out 38, because 38 is another album, and we're going to do 38, 40, and 41 as one episode. So welcome to our official episode 39. It's not my fault. It's the fact that the geniuses behind Dylan Vinyl, the Definitive Collection, a fabulous magazine, by the way, which I'm surprised it hasn't won the Magazine of the Year for its content. They've chosen to break up the order of Bob's career, and I don't know why. I'll never understand it.
No.
Anyway, but what we're going to do now is a bit of a change, a change to our format. If we've got a format, which I actually think we haven't got a format, but I'm going to choose a new item now, which I want you to present with some musical aid. It's time for a bit of Bob news. Is that it? Well, that was worth waiting for. You've been going on about your theme tune for Bob News for months now, and that's it. Right. Well, I'm just going to tell you, in the last week or so, we've had a new release from Bob, and it's, say new. It's Shadow Kingdom. This is the CD version of it. He released this film in 2021 when he couldn't tour due to the lockdown, and it was him with a bunch of very young musicians in a Club Bonbon in Marseille, it said on the thing. In fact, it's somewhere in Santa Monica. The Club Bonbon in Marseille does not exist. And the musicians on the screen with him as he mimes to the songs they've recorded freshly in the studio with another set of musicians aren't the ones on the record. Who is on the record, though, is a bit of a mystery, as there are no credits of any kind on this CD. But I will say one thing for this. This is old songs. It's subtitled on the film, The Early Songs of Bob Dylan. The versions on this are absolutely beautiful. I think this is my favourite version ever of Queen Jane Approximately, my favourite version ever of Tombstone Blues, my favourite version ever of What Was It You Wanted, the latest song here, which is from Oh Mercy, 1989. And it's got a fantastic version of It's All Over Now, Baby Blue as well. For those of you who are more old-fashioned kind of people who buy Dylan Vinyl, the Definitive Collection, this is the vinyl version of the record. And it's about 54 minutes long, so there's only enough for this. There's a picture of Bob from the movie in the middle of there. As you can see, it's electrically recorded. That's very reassuring for all our... it's a stereo recording there. It says electrically recorded inside the album. But because there's only enough music to fill 3 sides, it's a series of electrical recordings featuring, I think that says magic notes. And so the fourth side is a wonderful etching. I wonder if Bob that can see this, and if Bob's done this etching himself. But it's all over the record. I've not played this side yet, but it's Bob's experimental side. In this case, side 4. Right, okay, well, that's Shadow Kingdom, and I would say, look out for that one. It is a fantastic record. It really is. I mean, the way he delivers the words on Queen Jane Approximately and Tombstone Blues in particular, they're my all-time favourite versions of those old chestnuts from his career. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Oh.
We're talking about, we're going in our Bob TARDIS to 1966, to the most famous rock tour of all time. And this is a double album called The Real Royal Albert Hall Concert 1966. And the reason it's called that, of course, is because for many years, the Manchester Free Trade Hall legendary gig, where somebody calls him Judas, was bootlegged as the Royal Albert Hall gig. And it was some years before people realised it's not the Albert Hall at all. When they released it in the bootleg series, it says, you can see that at the bottom of the stream, the open quotes Royal Albert Hall end quotes concert, and it's live at the Manchester Free Trade Hall. So they released that. What year was this? This was in 1998. This came out, and I've got a version of this album I'm going to show you on vinyl in a second. this is a Japanese import of the album, which has got this obi strip, and if you can just see what it says there, it's a real one. It says there, so I think that probably means it's the real concert, and it's a very nicely produced thing, very similar to the packaging. It's got this special extra booklet, which I'll look at in a minute, but it's got very much like this is a smaller version of what we'll be seeing, with one major difference, and all the band members listed there. And that's 2 CDs. One's the acoustic set, one's the electric set. The booklet is something, it's got extensive liner notes, but as you can see, they're only available to Japanese readers, and there's no English translation of them. They're very detailed. I'm now on, they go on to page, oh my God. Yeah, there's absolutely pages of notes. In all in Japanese, and thereby the very well known Kenta Hagiwara. He's written the notes there, and then after that you get the lyrics in English, which is unusual for a Bob record. Usually a very bad album if the lyrics appear, and then if that's not enough for you, you get all the lyrics in Japanese as well. And like it says, it's a real one on the front. It says here, in the words of the other concert, which they've got mixed up with, it said, "Play it fucking loud." Anyway, that's that. And this is the version from the collection. This is the same thing, obviously, but there's one major difference. I wonder if you can spot what it is. Well, on this version, we have the lineup of Dylan and the band presented accurately there, but for some reason, there's another band printed on this side. This is the personnel credits from Modern Times, and they're printed on that side of the record. And I don't know if that's unique to this collection or if that's a Columbia. Columbia's produced this record, but I don't know why that's there, and it seems to be on every copy, I understand, from various chatter online, but it's very bizarre mistake, and the covers have been very good. And again, these are, as they all are, 180 grand. They're very nicely pressed records. This album was released in 2018, 10 years after the original bootleg series of the thing one, and it was also released as part of a 36 disc set of all the extant recordings of the band live in 1966. And of course, you'd have to be bonkers to buy that, but this is it. It's a huge slab of a thing. This is all 36 discs, and a little booklet as well with notes by Clinton Halin, Dylan expert. And the delightfully, on these 36 discs, the set list is pretty consistent. So he's playing it again and again. There's a few differences at the beginning and the end of the set where he changes things around. But that's quite interesting because every night is different. And when he gets to Britain in particular, the hostility is astonishing on some of the nights. And at the beginning, at the end of this, there's some bootlegs of the early stretches of the tour in America. And there's a lot more of appreciative audiences there. There's a bit of booing when the band comes on, but generally, particularly in the first half, which is universally listened to with rapt attention wherever the tour goes, there's actual real interaction with him and the audience. And we recently did the Brandeis University concert, and it's not on that jokey level, but it's approaching it on one or two of the nights, But when he gets to places like the UK, and when there's some Australian concerts in here as well. When he gets to Paris, things start to get quite tetchy. And the night we're listening to on this record is the penultimate night of the entire tour. The following night is also at the Royal Albert Hall. That is in this box. Both Royal Albert Hall gigs were professionally recorded, along with two of the other British gigs, including Manchester. So that's why they're able to release Manchester Although I think the Sheffield gig was also professionally recorded, and this is very new territory for a lot of these sound engineers, recording this ultra loud electric band in 1966 on the road. And it works out very well on the Albert Hall gigs and the Manchester gig. But on the Sheffield gig, it says in the notes, the distortion on the vocals was so extreme that they used a feed from the mixing desk, a different recording, and put it over the band recording for the album. What's evident is in Paris, there's a kind of deeper interaction with the audience in the acoustic set, but there's also a very vehement set of them don't want to hear the electric band. And he starts off all jokey and happy as Larry, and then soon becomes hostile towards them. And at one point, deliberately strings his acoustic guitar tuning up to about 10 minutes just to wind them up. There's a few moments like that on this concert with the audience, and he has a few interactions. It's far worse on the second night. On the second night, during the acoustic set, which song is it? It's very early on. I think it's it could even be fourth time around. Second song, somewhere around there, he announces, "This is the last time I'll ever play here." He just says it straight away, and he says it again in the second half. We're not coming back here, and the audience react in various ways, and he just brushes them off. And then when he does Visions of Johanna, which is one of his greatest songs, he then takes umbrage with the British music press. He says, "Oh, somebody wrote over here that this is a drug song. I don't write drug songs. I wouldn't know how to go about it. The very thought of that is just too vulgar." That's what he says. And then goes into this song, and someone shouts something which I can't make out. And he goes, "Yeah, okay." Carries on. And in the second half, that concert, he goes into some bloke starts heckling him, and he just says, "Look, do you want to come up here? I'll come down there and do what you do. You come up here and do what I do. Let's see how that goes." And he goes, "You can come on. And of course, the guy doesn't take that. Obviously doesn't do it because he's fucking scared. But he goes, I'm willing to do that. You come up here for a minute and say what you want."
Yeah.
And the guy just doesn't come up. And then at the end of the show, on the second night, the last performances of the entire tour, they do Like a Rolling Stone, like all the other gigs. And before and after that song, he's very sarcastically going, "And can I just say how wonderful you people have been? It's been really great playing for you. You're a great crowd. Thank you very much. You've been wonderful. I love you," and it's so dripping with sarcasm, and it sounds daft now because he's here all the time. "I'm never coming back here again." But to the people then, it must have seemed like that was true, because although he played the Isle of Wight Festival in '69 for an hour, and a desultory hour at that, the next time, this is 1966, the next time he toured in London was 1978. It's 12 years before he came back. So it obviously did cut deep. And the Judas thing particularly, he was really taken aback by that. Also, on the second gig in particular, and there's some signs of it on this as well, he's not really with it.
Yeah,
I think he's taking things just to keep going. Because basically, he's coming across all bolshy and funny and witty on stage when he can, but it's taking it out of him, because every night they're going on stage and he's being booed, sometimes during the acoustic set, which most of the audience are loving. People are shouting "traitor" and things like that at him. And while he's playing, Just Like a Woman, he goes, "Look," and he starts saying things like, "These are all protest songs."
Yeah.
Just to shut them up. And this isn't British music, this is American music. He says that as well. And another thing he often says is he's so pissed off with it, he's worked out responses already. And one of them is when he occasionally has to tune his guitar in the first half, is to very sarcastically say, "My electric guitar never goes out of tune." And it really winds people up. And he's really pissed off. And you know, the Beatles and the Stones in full attended both these concerts, and he didn't. They wanted to go back and meet him, and he didn't want to meet anyone. He didn't meet anyone after these gigs. I think he was basically poured into the car and flew back to America. They were all exhausted. Robbie Robertson says so. Levon Helm had left the band because of the booing in America. He said, I don't understand why they're paying to boo us. What what is it all about? And on the front of this record, there's remember Ray Coleman used to be the editor of the Melody Maker. He's written an uproar. It's this uproar at Bob Dylan concert, and you can just read a few words of it. Yeah. This is my last visit here, said an angry Bob Dylan at his final British concert at London's Albert Hall on Friday. Sadly, some of the audience didn't seem to care. They booed, barracked, and stalked out to protest when, after the interval, Bob appeared with his electrified backing group. Dylan's excursion into rock and roll angered them. They wanted only the pure guitar-accompanied folk singing of the first half. Dylan handled the aggressors extremely well. Oh, you beautiful people, he said, sending them up. And then to somebody, it's all the same stuff. I'm playing. And at one point, he goes into a long rambling thing. I think on the second night. Well, the times keep changing, and so do I. Anyway, it's all very odd. This tour is very odd, and you can imagine the feeling of Dylan and the group when they got back to America, and here's Albert Grossman with his 64 more gigs all lined up. And strangely, after that, Dylan seems not willing to do the gigs and has a mysterious motorcycle accident that means he can't go on tour for quite a while. It's 8 years till he tours America again. He does the odd charity gig. He does the Woody Guthrie Memorial concert. But the thought of going on the road again do you think about it? 12 years in 1966. That's a lifetime. I mean, we're used to idiot rock stars spending years on their albums nowadays, but this is a period where the Beatles started to panic if they hadn't had a new record out for three months, isn't it? I mean, maybe they'll forget about us. For someone to say, "Yeah, I'm not coming back," and then not to tour again for 8 years in America and 12 years in Britain, there's something happened to his confidence about playing live. And as I say, he has this mysterious motorcycle accident. He vanishes, more or less. They put out Greatest Hits album. He spent ages doing basement tapes with the band. They're completely different sound. Basically establishing the sound the band will take into their career is established in the basement tape sessions. That album is years before it's available to the general public. All the musicians have got their bootleg of it, and the Beatles are emulating it on Let It Be. They want to get together and do music really quickly. That on the Get Back film, they're even playing songs by the band and Dylan in the sessions. They've obviously heard those tapes, and particularly George Harrison is very taken with the sound of the band. So it's influencing people when he's not doing anything, when he's not officially released anything and he's not touring. He's still influencing the biggest rock stars in the world. He's an enormous figure, and he is, in a strange way, his absence only makes him more powerful, because where is he? What's he doing? What's he going to come up with next? And in his book Chronicles, he has during this period, but he's quite happy. He's quite happy. He's got his family. He's spending all the time with his wife and kids in Woodstock. And in the daytime, he goes and plays a few hours with the band. And he writes more songs that year than he ever writes again. There's 70 or 80 new songs written and recorded in various forms that year. And he recalls in his book being driven home from one of the sessions by Robbie Robertson, dropped off at his house, and thinking to himself how much he's enjoying this quiet time away from the publicity, away from people rushing him in the street, away from these people thinking he's got all the answers when he thinks he's got no answers. And as they're driving home, Robbie Robertson says to him, well, where are you going to take it next then, Bob? And Bob just thinks, not you as well. I thought you knew what the reality of it, not you. And he says, I didn't say anything. I just said to myself, what, he thinks that as well? It's a weird position to be in, isn't it? He's obviously completely blindsided by this reaction to this tour, and he's looking for a way to quietly rebuild a career. And his own closest collaborators, where are you going to take it next, Bob? he says, I don't want to take it anywhere. I just want to do my thing. So anyway, I think this album is very interesting. I think it's a very good performance. I think the opening acoustic half is lovely. I think to say he probably is medicated to the max, he still seems to remember all the bloody words, doesn't he? I mean, I've seen completely unmedicated performers completely forget the words to their own songs many times on stage. That's not the case with Bob, is it? I mean, he doesn't stumble at all, really, on, say, the situation. And then when the live band starts, I mean, in his review, Ray Coleman is slagging off the people shouting, but he says, but does it have to be so loud? You can imagine poor old Ray there in his glasses and his tie. What the fuck is that? Because they brought over a PA. It wasn't like in Get Back, Don Lennon saying, well, we got better sound than this in the De Montfort Hall with their speakers. They use the venue speakers. Bob's not using no venue speakers. He's brought a PA over from America. And it's one of the first PAs ever used in Britain by a rock band. And the sound is, by all accounts, pretty fucking cataclysmic. And so the people who've been sat there like this, listening to every word, I'm just hit by this tsunami of noise. And, in that way, it's quite understandable, some of the reaction. But some of the reaction is obviously organised. There's a Communist Party organised people, and there's a load of bloody Luddites from the folk world, led by, apparently, in Manchester, the character Ken Barlow from Coronation Street, as mentioned in the scripts of Coronation Street, was one of those heckling Bob, Ken Barlow. And to be perfectly fair, I can just imagine him doing that. I mean, I can. But what did you think of this then, as a record of rock history, Sid? What did you think of it?
I'd not heard it before, and I think when you approach, when you're given something that is such a revered moment, or such an important moment, or a controversial moment, there are other albums. There are like various live albums in different genres, like Bob Marley at the Hammersmith. Where was it?
Yeah.
Was it the Hammersmith Odeon?
I think it was that. Was it Hammersmith Palais or somewhere? Was it?
Yeah, somewhere. So you've got albums which seem to, for whatever reason, capture a moment of significance. And I suppose with this album, it's capturing something. We know kind of the history of it and what happened, but as you pointed out, it's all the people in that venue that night, including the band. It was such a moment of change for so many of them. And you can be sort of a bit sympathetic to some of them for feeling a bit, oh my God, our hero has changed. And it's indicative of, it's that pattern has repeated itself over and over again. I remember my son telling me about, I can't remember, unfortunately, the name of the metal band in question, but there's some metal band, and that how they have that kind of gravelly sort of singing in some of them.
They became Bucks Fizz, didn't they?
There's some controversy when they started singing tunes and started where you were able to hear words.
Judas!
But that reaction amongst that hardcore of fans, was true in 1966 for Bob Dylan, and true in 2000 and whenever for this band whose name I unfortunately can't remember. So, and that's fans. Fans will always do this. I think.
Yeah.
I think listening to it sort of without any of the baggage of history from my point of view, I would go so far as to say is, if I saw this album in the shops, I would buy it.
Oh, really?
I found side one, the first disc. I found it just so engaging. Notwithstanding all my usual reservations about the length of songs drawn out interminably, there is something about the performance, and maybe that is the baggage of the event rather than the music. But I found it just utterly. I was playing the album, I was doing something else, and I stopped what I was doing just to listen to it. And there are too many points in the first half where there's something almost beautiful about certain parts of it. There's a quality to it. There's a moment on Mr. Tambourine Man, which might be, I think it's toward the end of the set, or it's the last.
It's the last song in the first set.
Yeah. And there's a wonderful moment where, for the last, Dylan, for whatever, for a whole variety of reasons that you've already outlined, seems to be lost in the song, lost in a reverie, and that comes out. That comes out in the way the song. He kind of does this harmonica vamp, which and it lasts like over a minute.
Yes, it's just this changed nightly. That
it's just this moment of contemplative, just, and he could be doing it to wind the crowd up. I don't know what the thing is, but it struck me as an intensely musical moment, albeit a very minimal focus on just
I think
a range of notes.
He does a lot of that on the harmonica when he's into something.
And you can hear him sort of like just being lost in the moment, and I became lost in the moment with it. So many songs off that side, which I just thought were really captivating. The second album, as you pointed out, he does say to people, look, the times are changing. This is, and actually, he receives quite good supportive applause. I've heard on the record.
There's an enormous faction of people who are enjoying it in the audience.
Yeah.
But there's this very noisy minority.
But there is this group, and it's maybe after "Baby Let Me Follow You Down," the audience, they seem to snap. It's just too much for them. And in a way,
pushed them too far. He's gone too far.
In a way, it's not sort of. What's the track after "Baby Let Me Follow You Down"? What's the track after that? I can't remember, and I haven't made a note of it.
It's like Tom Thumb's Blues.
Yeah, that's it. And in a way, it's not hard to kind of understand why they've snapped. Because Dylan, it's like he takes a run and jump at the song. This song's coming down the highway toward him. He takes a run and jump at it, and it's like he sort of hits the windshield of this oncoming old juggernaut, and the words are like smeared across the and it's fantastic. It's such a great moment. It's such a great performance. And there's another one, my favorite moment on the whole record, where he's introducing leopard skin pillbox hat, and he sort of you hear him and he tunes the electric guitar a bit, and it's this thin scratchy sound, ring ring ring, and then the band, he plays a bar or two, and then the band kick in, and it's like a bomb going off. It's fantastic moment. It's a transformational moment, and you, in a way, I can understand why the hardcore tankies would be horrified that they
Tankies.
kind of that they hear us being subsumed by this electrical tidal wave of noise. But that's what makes it viscerally exciting. And I thought the whole performance. I mean, I think like a Rolling Stone. That we've said this before about the song. It's just built for kind of max sneer set to max. And he does it proud. He does it
dedicated
proud.
Dedicated to the Taj Mahal on this.
Yeah, that's right. That's fantastic. I love the idea that you can dedicate various songs to buildings, and more people should frankly be doing that. So overall, for me, I struggled to find a downside, notwithstanding some of my reservations about length and if I'm in the right mood for it, and I obviously was when I was listening to this the other day. You know, I'm there. I'm totally wrapped up in it. And whilst throughout the series, I've been, you know, largely unimpressed by a big portion of what I've heard, often for the first time. I can absolutely, totally understand why, you know, Dylan's held in such high esteem by people, and you get a sort of sense of. I mean, this is the live album in particular, but also actually the acoustic album. You know, it's pioneering stuff in a way, and you're going to bring some people with you, and some people are going to struggle with it. But you know, respect and kudos to his Bobness for just ploughing through it. It's sensational stuff.
Oh, great! I mean, to be honest, he's quite nice to the audience on this compared to some of the nights. I mean, he does this thing other nights, and he does it on the second night of the Royal Albert Hall engagement, where there's this whole "what is he singing about" thing in the press and from some of the fans, and he goes into a long explanation of Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues for them, which is complete bollocks deliberately. And he goes, "Yeah, Tom Thumb was a friend of mine, and he's an abstract painter. And he had a blue period, and I wrote this song called Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues to celebrate that period." The artists have different periods. Just think about that.
Yeah. I mean, in the sort of 4 minutes that we have left, according to the big clock on my side of the internet here.
Big clock.
Where do you rate this album in you know, I mean, you've got all these kind of different versions of Bob live, etc. Where do you rate this album overall? I mean, do you think this stands up to the legend of it, or
yeah, I do actually. I do, because, well, as you pointed out with your description of the experience of listening to this record, it's not a wholly musical thing. It's like also a documentary.
Yeah.
It's partly a musical experience and partly like you're hearing an audio documentary of an historic event in the history of the form. And I think all these concerts work very well. Of course, the prime one of this tour is the Free Trade Hall one, where that it's just electric at that ending, and that's when he actually does. You can hear him over the mic say to the band, "Play it fucking loud," and that's just after he shouted Judas, and Dylan's gone, "I don't believe you." What's your favourite track then, Sid?
It's hard to pick one of them. I think bizarrely, Tom Thumb's Blues. I think,
really?
Yeah, I just love. It's punk. It's basically punk rock. You know.
Well, you described it brilliantly. That windscreen analogy is fantastic.
Just bam.
I'm writing that one down. Yeah. My favourite though is Like a Rolling Stone, because it's just atomic.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And, I love it. I love that. I mean, you know, I could have chosen that. You know, I also like the song. I never can remember the name of it, but the chorus is "Do You, Mr. Jones?" Whatever that song's called.
Well, that's called you know, that's called "Ballad of a Thin Man." That's the one, a very famous song.
I like that one. What's next?
Well, next we're going to have something completely different from the atomic tsunami of this album. We've got the songbook. We've got Shadows in the Night.